Okay, so now we're going to jump back a little bit and review something in regards to the different options we've learned since then, that we've covered since then. And earlier I talked about this item, individual origin, as far as pivot point. So all of the scaling, the keyboard shortcuts and all that, they all happen around whatever you have as selected as a pivot point. And they are all very similar in how they work, with the exception of one. So for example, if I have all these selected, and right now I have it set to median point, and I scale, they're all going to scale away from that median point, or they're all going to rotate around that median point. Got it? And then active element is going to be the last one selected, so all they're going to scale around the light there, or shift select, and they're all going to scale around the cube, right? So 3D cursor is the same way. Right now it's at the center of the scene, so it's going to appear to be scaling around the cube, but if I grab it and move it away, it'll still scale around that 3D cursor, right? And then bounding box, of course, is very similar to the median point. I described that difference in an earlier video. It's very slight, but nonetheless it's the same concept, that it's centering around the pivot point. The one that's different from all of these is individual origins. Now to demonstrate that, I'm going to jump ahead maybe a few lessons and Shift D to duplicate this box. Let's just duplicate it 2 times. Just delete that one, and then I'll go into the front view and ortho, because I want this to be real super clear how this is actually working. So if we take these 2 boxes, and I will take one of them and rotate it that way, I'll take one of them and rotate it slightly that way. Alright, so individual origins, if we're set to individual origins, it will scale around those centers. It will rotate around those centers, right? And if I have it set to global, remember it defaults to local, right? And so this is going to come into play in this way. Let's say if we select this cube, that's cube 001, and then I go down here to open this window and go down here to transform orientations and make a new one. Now I have cube 001 as an option. Obviously these are all going to move along that if I do that, or they're going to rotate along the ZZ if I do that, right? So keyboard shortcuts and all that apply. So now if I have it set to well, even though I'm in individual origins, let's take a look at this. I have it set to cube 001. Now watch this one over here. If I go scale on the ZZ, we still only have 1, right? And so notice how this box on the right, the bottom right box, this one is scaling differently than the other one. They're both scaling out, but they're both trying to scale along this plane of scale ZZ. See that plane there? They're trying to scale along that plane, right? And it's not super obvious until you switch this to global, and then since it's doing local by default, what's local? Well, local is each cube's local orientation, right? So we'll go back to global, select both of these, and we are in individual origins, and we go scale on the ZZ, we get more lines showing up, and guess what? You see now they're both scaling along their own individual orientation as well as their own pivot, right? And so this would be real obvious, if I can maybe make this obvious, for rotations as well. If we have this set to cube 001 and I go rotate on the ZZ, they're both going to see how it's that bottom right one is rotating kind of strangely, what you might expect it would do. But if I have this set to global, it'll take the local as the default, and now I go rotate on the ZZ, and now it's rotating on its local Z axis. You see, that's a drastic difference. So it's good to understand all these things and how they work together, and I think that pretty much covers most of the manipulation stuff as far as keyboard shortcuts for now.